Hello, everyone. We are the reporters. I'm Helen D. Molina and Ma'am Shelo P. Cabanela. We are from San Rafael Elementary School, Tigaon District. Our topic is about autism and learning disabilities. What is autism? What are the characteristics of autism?
Or ASD, is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects a person's social and communication abilities. Persons with ASD also have areas of strong interest and sometimes have repetitive behavior and sensory sensitivities. Autism is sometimes associated with strengths in the areas of visual memory, music, art, math, and science. But each person with ASD is unique. Autism is a spectrum disorder and varies significantly from person to person. Some people with ASD may require significant support in their daily lives, while others may need less support, and some live entirely independently. Changes in brain development associated with autism begin during the prenatal period. These changes are associated with differences in genetics. It is possible to diagnose ASD when a child is between 18 and 24 months of age. Early behavioral intervention helps children with autism learn to communicate and socially interact and has a significant impact on long-term outcome. Support for learning social and communication skills can be helpful throughout adolescence and adulthood. People with autism sometimes have other conditions, such as higher rates of sleep disorders, ADHD, anxiety, depression, and gastrointestinal issues. Treating these co-occurring conditions can make a big difference. As adults, people on the autism spectrum can become employed and contribute in important ways to society. The world is a better place if the qualities of people who are neurodiverse are accepted and valued. The Duke Center for Autism and Brain Development provides state-of-the-art, interdisciplinary clinical care, conducts cutting-edge research, trains the next generation of scientists, and advocates for public policies to help ensure people with autism reach their full potential.
What is autism spectrum disorder or the ASD? A developmental disorder that has appeared by age 3 and that is variable in person but is recognized and diagnosed by impairment of the ability to form normal social relationships, by impairment of the ability to communicate with others, and by stereotype behavior patterns, especially as exhibited by the preoccupation with repetitive activities of restricted focus rather than with flexible and imaginative ones. The person with ASD is a developmental disabilities caused by differences in the brain. People with ASD often have problems with social communication and interaction and restricted or repetitive behavior or interest. People with ASD may also have different ways of learning, moving, or paying attention. What are the characteristics of autism? One is the social skills. The person have an autism, they are very little or no eye contact, unusual eye contact. Lack of eye contact is a well-known symptom of autism. People with autism are less likely to look directly at another person's eyes, which suggests they're less engaged with others or less responsive to people in general. Resistance to being held or touched. Difficulty understanding joke, figure, or speech of sarcasm. When we say sarcasm, it refers to the use of words that means the opposite of what we really want to say, especially in order to insult someone or to show irritation or just to be funny. Difficulty reading facial expression and body language. Difficulty understanding the rules of conversation. Difficulty understanding group interaction. Gives spontaneous comment which seem to have no connected to the current conversation. Make honest but inappropriate observation. Sounds unavailable to understand another's feeling. Difficulty maintaining friendship. Unaware or disinterested in what is going on around them. Talk excessively about one or two topics. Insistence on sameness. Minimal acknowledgement of others. Next is the speech and language. Abnormal use of speech, intonation, rhyme, or stress while speaking. Speech is abnormally loud or quiet. Echoala. When we say echolalia, it is the repetition or echoing words or sounds that you hear someone else say. It is an important step for language development in children. Echolalia can also be a sign of autism or developmental disability in children or neurological problems in adults. Often use of short, incomplete sentences. Pronouns are often inappropriately used. Speech started very early and then stopped for a period of time. Difficult understanding directional term like a front, back, before, after. Emotional behaviors. Obsession with object, ideas, or desires. Perseveration, unusual attachment to object, codes, movies, or videos games. Difficulty transferring skills from one area to another. Perfectionism in certain areas, frustration is expressed in unusual ways. Feels the same need to fix or rearrange things. Transitioning from one activity to another is difficult. Difficulty attending to some tasks can show some ADD tendencies. Emotional has a substantial influence on the cognitive processes in human, including the perception, attention, learning, memory, reasoning, and problem solving. Emotion has particularly strong influence on attention, especially modulating the selectivity of attention as well as motivating action and behavior. Verbal outbursts, difficulties sensing time. When we say outbursts, include temper tantrums, verbal or physical fights, and harming of an animal or the damaging of property. Having 3 or more outbursts within 1 year period resulting in the damage or destruction of property or injury to an animal or person is also a sign of IED. Difficulty waiting for them turns. Nagpalagi sila na yung una nagmamadali. Cross-motor skill are developmentally being peers, like riding a bike, skating, and running. Cross-motor skill develop involves the large muscles in the arms, leg, and torso. Cross-motor activities are important to everyday physical activities like walking, running, throwing, lifting, or kicking. Fine motor skills are developmentally behind peers like handwriting, tying shoes, scissors. The fine motor is the coordination between your child's small muscle, like those in their hands, wrist, and finger in coordination with their eyes. Fine motor skill involve the small muscles of the body that enable such function as writing, grasping small objects, and fastening clothing. Inability to perceive potentially dangerous situations. extremely fear or phobia for no apparent reason. When we say phobia, is an exaggerated and irrational fear, then term phobia is often used to refer to fear of a particular trigger. Sensitivity or lack of sensitivity to sound, texture, taste, smell, or light. Difficulty with loud or sudden sound. Laugh, cries, or throw tantrums for no apparent reason. Bigla na lang umiiyak, bigla na tumatawa na lang nang walang dahilan. Resist change in the environment. Becomes overwhelmed with too much verbal direction. Tends to either tone out or break down with being reprimanded. Calmed by external stimulation, soothing sound, rotating object, constant pressure. May need to be left alone to release tension and frustration. Attention deficiency hyperactivity disorder. We'll all use this word to describe our own children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews. But what exactly is ADD or ADHD? Attention deficient hyperactivity disorder is a problem of not being able to focus, being overactive, not being able to control behavior, or a combination of this. For those problems to be diagnosed as ADHD, they must be out of the normal range for a person's age and development. For students with autism, fewer words, more pictures, symbols, signals, and gestures. Be concrete, black and white, pragmatic and written direction, verbal direction, and expectation. Teach students to look for these words they can understand when reading direction on worksheet, word problem, comprehension question. Use a silent timer to help them organize their timer better. Structuring time and setting clear parameters help students with autism protect their environment. Cut down on anxiety and outbursts. Use a picture schedule to lay out the school day, the class period, or when transition will occur. Even if your schedule is written on the board, a small picture representation at the student desk work wonders. Set up social interaction when you are present, when you can model appropriate social behavior and response. That ends my report. Thank you so much for your listening.
Good day, classmates. We'll continue on the second topic about learning disabilities. But before that, we'll be viewing a video on people having learning disabilities.
For me, a learning disability means that people will find it hard to be able to learn things first time, and they need time. They need time to understand things.
They might need care and support as well by their parents, by their mum and dad, or brother and sister, or their family carers.
Learning disability is a lifelong condition, but I've got a learning disability, but it does not mean that we cannot work just as well as anybody else. Sometimes we can do the job even better.
I actually didn't know what it was till 93. It's just sometimes I'm lucky, sometimes people are impatient.
People with a learning disability, we are like awesome people that can mix. People with a learning disability can do it.
So we already viewed how or what are the characteristics of people having learning disabilities. We come now to the definition of learning disability. So a learning disability is a neurological condition that interferes with a person's ability to store, process, or produce information. Learning disabilities can affect one's ability to read, write, speak, spell, compute math, reason, and also affect a person's attention, memory, coordination, social skill, and emotional maturity. Learning disabilities has 3 types. This includes dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. So, this is how dyslexia affects a person. So, this means that when a person has a dyslexia, the learning disorder that involves difficulty reading due to problems in identifying speech, sounds, and learning how they relate to letters and words. This also affects the areas of the brain that process the language. So, a person having dyscalculia, this refers to a wide range of difficulties with maths, including weaknesses in understanding the meaning of numbers and difficulty applying mathematical principles to solve problems. So this is rarely identified early. The next one is the dysgraphia. This is characterized by the person having difficulty converting the sounds of language into written form, the phonemes into graphemes, or knowing which alternate spelling to use for each sound. So, these are the ideas, the disabilities for students with learning. So, we are going to allow students to read stories and books, science and social studies content in a variety of ways. Read aloud to a body. Listen on tape or digital recording. Read to self with a whisper phone. Read to self while standing. The kinesthetic element can do wonders. Again, engage the body as students work on spelling. Bouncing a ball and catching it for each letter as they spell aloud. Let them write the words on a whiteboard, a paint bag, or stamps. Highlight the prefixes, suffixes, base words, whatever you're teaching that day. Although they seem juvenile, using manipulative and drawing out pictures of the math concepts is okay. Mental math is wonderful, but for some students with short-term memory, processing issues, or attention problems, this can be a tough skill. Highlight key parts of math equations, especially if the student often switches or confuses what the problem is asking, When the student have to describe math content, how did you come to your answer? Allow student to show you how they solve the problem, taking the words out of the equation. Organization is very important and often needs to be taught to students with ADHD. Parents need to be a key part of this process and follow through at home. Color code. Color coding systems are a beautiful thing. Every subject has a color assigned to it forever and ever. Physical placement of the student with regards to instruction, visually blocking off distractors and keeping them close to the action. Using clear color strips for reading text, particularly difficult science and social studies content. Never underestimate the power of running an errand. Students with excessive physical activity should get up and move around frequently. Allowing students to stand at a table or desk gives them the feeling of a bit more physical freedom. Again, quiet visual timers at the student's desk will help with self-monitoring. A small checklist of 3 to 5 behavioral expectations at the student's desk gives bonus to the student for monitoring his or her own behavior. Work for a reward, break, prize given by parents, and etc. Outline the notes as opposed to giving them the notes outright for content areas to keep the student organized during lectures. Okay, that ends our discussion about the autism and learning disabilities. This is your host, Shelo P. Cabanela and Ma'am Helen D. Molina.
Thank you